Hi Not Board Gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video I'm going to be discussing 10 solo or soloable games that you may not have tried. And the reason for the list is, well, generally when somebody does a top 10 solo games or essential solo games list, there are lots and lots of new releases on there because of course we all get caught up in the in the cult of the new. So I thought I'd do a slightly different list on solo and soloable games. Now it's not necessarily my 10 favourite games or 10 favourite games of all times, but these are 10 different solo games that if you haven't tried, you may want to seek out and see if you can play them, add them to your collection, etc. And I'm not going to do this in a ranking order. I'm literally just going to list 10 games because these appear all over my my list of games, if you like, and I don't think ranking is fair because they all have their own merits. So it's a slightly different list. It's not a 10 popular games list. I'm going to stay away from hopefully stay away from the 10 games that you see on most of the top soloable board games list, like the top 200 that comes out that Kevin Erskine does every year. This is going to be games wide and varied, basically, across my collection that I think are all worthy of people trying out. Now, as I say, there is no such thing as an essential solo game. Everybody's needs and tastes are massively different. So if anybody says, hey, here's 10 essential solo games or 10 essential games you must try, it may not work for you at all, or some of those games may not work for you. I'm not saying that these are essential, but these are solo games that I think that maybe you should take a look at. So the first game we're going to look at is the one that's set up on my table right now, and I have everything for this game, or everything that was released for this game. I've got a wonderful storage system for it, and it is by far and away my favourite Arkham game, and that is Eldritch Horror. Now, I start off with a base set of Eldritch Horror and then realised that I really liked the core mechanisms. There were some things lacking from it, etc. But then I ended up buying everything, all the small box expansions, all the big box expansions. I have everything now that is released for Eldritch Horror in a wonderful storage system. And I love this game. I've got it out. I played it last night on my own because my wife wants to play it. So I needed to kind of refresh the rules for myself. And this is almost a pure lugfest. It's a dice chucking game. Okay, so almost every encounter that you have on in Eldritch Horror is going to resolve in some form of dice chucking. It's heavily mitigable. There are loads and loads of decks of cards. I've got all the expansion cards, or some of the expansion cards set up here in front of me. And every game you play is going to be very different. I absolutely love it. You traverse the world. You try to defeat the Ancient One by solving at least 3 mysteries before the Doom track runs out. And everything is pitted against you as you're trying to close gates, as you're fighting monsters and elite monsters, as you're doing encounters, and all the time the kind of Doom track is ticking down to awaken the old one, and the old one is awakened, then things get really bad for you there. So I absolutely love Eldritch Horror, and if you haven't tried it from a solo perspective, you can play as true solo, or you can play with as many investigators as you want. I think it plays up to 6, or maybe even more, maybe even 8, basically. But you can play it with as many as you want. If an investigator is defeated, you can replace them with another investigator because you lose the game by not solving the mysteries and by the old one obviously awakening and then defeating you that way. So I really love Eldritch Horror. It is my favourite Arkham game. I know there's a lot of love out there for Arkham Horror 2nd edition. I had it, I tried it, didn't like it, found it too long. The narrative is better than it is in Eldritch Horror. You kind of tell your own story here. Arkham Horror LCG, not really for me. I had that and a fair few of the expansions, and it just doesn't grab me. Games like Cthulhu Death May Die, great dungeon crawlers, but for my pure Arkham experience, nothing beats Eldritch Horror for me. Next on the list is a new game, and it's one that I got a couple of weeks ago. I knew it came out on Kickstarter last year, and then I saw somebody post on it on the forums, and then I played it the Steam version on my Steam Deck, and I had to buy it. And that game is, I'm going to get the box for you now. Yep, so it is Paperback Adventures by Fowers Games. I adore this game. I cannot stop playing it. I got all 3 characters for it, and it's a word-based game. And you get cards, and those cards you spell letters, and the letters have attack or defense symbols on there because you're attacking characters in your book, these lackeys and these big bosses, etc. And once you've defeated 3 bosses, you beat that part of the game. You can choose your characters, you can choose the enemies that you fight. It's completely different every single time you play it. If you like word-based games, then I absolutely thoroughly recommend Paperback Adventures. It can be played by 2 people or 4 people, I believe. There's 2 versus 2 head-to-head, but it really is a solo game, and I think it's fantastic. It's completely modular. You need the core box, and then one of the 3 kind of character boxes. There we go. We've got Ex Machina there, one of the 3 characters, and each character plays differently. Ex Machina is kind of somewhere in the middle. You have, what's she called? You have the damsel, who is a bit more defense-focused, and then you have Plot Hook, who is a bit more kind of longer words. Damsel is more attack focused, and Plot Hook is kind of longer words beat there. Thoroughly love Paperback Adventures. If you like word type games, then I really recommend you check Paperback Adventures out. So the next one on the list is a really divisive game. It's divisive because of the artwork, and I absolutely adore this game. I think it's utterly fantastic. It's a huge table hog, and I've got loads of expansions for it as well. Very brightly coloured board, and I'm talking, of course, about Dungeon Degenerates by Sean Aberg. Look, the artwork is divisive. You either love it or you hate it. It's a little bit Marmite in terms of people's preference for it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I have nothing but a great time when I play Dungeon Degenerates, and despite the name of it, it's not a dungeon crawler. It's an RPG style adventure game, almost choose your own adventure. And the aim to enjoying Dungeon Degenerates is allowing the story to unfold. Don't rush your objectives in Dungeon Degenerates. It's got this wonderful, the wonderful artwork. It's got this great gameplay where you're traversing the map, and you've got the Hand of Doom, which is ticking down against you at all times. Your party will inevitably split up and get together at some point, and you're going to fight people and upgrade your characters. So much joy to be had in Dungeon Degenerates. It really is. It's, I suppose, in gameplay style, I don't know, is it similar to Eldritch Horror? Not quite, no, because it has some similarities. There is some dice chucking in there, of course. It's a pure kind of a merry style game or adventure style game, but it hits on so many levels for me. The storage system that comes with the game is for crap. You're just going to throw the plastic insert that comes out and end up putting it in baggies, etc. But for a thoroughly kind of couple of hours enjoying a story or going through a campaign for a few hours, I absolutely adore Dungeon Degenerates. It comes out kind of periodically on Kickstarter, so if you haven't checked it out, maybe well worth hunting down a copy of Dungeon Degenerates. If you love the artwork, you like an adventure style RPG style game, then trust me, you're really going to like Dungeon Degenerates. Okay, the next game I think a lot of people should try, and it is a little bit hard to get these days, so it's out there on the second-hand market, and there are 3 similar games. 2 of them probably have equal ranking in terms of people's minds, but the one I prefer is Fortune and Glory from Flying Frog Games. This is Indiana Jones. Now, this game does play very similar to Eldritch Horror. It's a pure dice fest as you traverse the world, kind of trying to complete your objectives, picking up artifacts, and you've got bad guys coming at you that you have to fight. You've got this wonderful kind of artwork on the cards, which is real photographs of real people in costumes. It looks B-movie, and everything about it is utterly B-movie. It even comes with a CD to play along as you're playing the game. It's not for everybody, but it's a real guilty pleasure for me. And I've got everything that's been released so far for it. There's a longer way to another expansion coming out for it. And I say it's very difficult to find now. So you may have to check out on the second-hand market. But Fortune and Glory for me relives that Indiana Jones adventure for me. It's a pure dice fest, and if you enjoy dice-based games, you really should go out and seek Fortune and Glory. Okay, next on the list is a game which is much beloved by a lot of people, and it's the third edition of this game. And it comes with, I think, a main rulebook and then another 4 rulebooks on top of that as you add mechanisms into it. Of course, I'm talking about Dawn of the Zeds, third edition by Herman Luttmann. It's a fantastic game. Kind of almost tower defense as you manage your resources, you're stopping the zombies coming onto you, and even the base game, it's it's got enough complexity there. But when you start adding these other rule books into it and you start building the game up and using a different side of the map, etc., once you're playing it at its full strength, it's a fascinating game. It's full of fun. The artwork is great. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's a zombie style game, but it's a zombie style game differently, where the zombies are these marauding hordes that keep coming for you, but you have to go out and you have to explore the town, you have to gain resources, get bullets so you can kill them, you have to try and survive. And I absolutely love Dawn of the Zeds third edition. It takes a wee while to play a full game if you're playing all of the rules, but if you don't, you can play kind of cut down versions of that by the base game and then adding and implementing other rules. It takes a bit of time to learn it all, but once you do, the juice is definitely worth the squeeze with Dawn of the Zeds third edition. Okay, another really hard to find game, because I think this came out in about 1989. I scored a copy from eBay about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. It's out of print now. You can get miniatures for it. I don't have the miniatures for it, so I've got kind of the standees, and it's an old style game. And for me, out of the licensed games for Alien, this is the best Alien licensed game. Now, as you know, if you watch my channel, I absolutely adore Nemesis. I think it's fantastic. It's the best Alien game that isn't Alien. But Aliens, This Time It's War, is from, I think, 1989, is just a proper old style game, and you play it across various things. You're in the kind of what's it called, the first part where they encounter the aliens in Alien, the kind of air purifying place, etc., and then you go into the facility itself, and then you end up fighting the alien Queen Mother. Utterly brilliant game. Really kind of, it wears its age on its sleeve. There aren't fancy mechanisms in here. You've got dice, you've got tables that you roll. You're trying to get your soldiers like Apone and like Frost, etc., through this first part, so you can then go into the next part and you get Ridley in there. I love Aliens, This Time It's War. It's got a paper map, a huge paper map with various sections on there, and yes, I suppose you can bling it out, and the character pieces, unlike where you get kind of punched card like you do in Eldritch Horror, they've been you can still see the perforation marks around them. The aliens keep spawning and coming on the map. It's so much fun, and again, I suppose like a game like Eldritch Horror, like a game like Fortune and Glory, it's heavily dice dependent, and I really don't mind that at all. If you're looking for a dice dependent game that really captures the feel of Aliens, this kind of marauding feel where they're all coming for you, where you're going to get overpowered, then see if you can find a copy of Aliens, This Time It's War. I'm so glad I found it. I think there's at least one expansion that I don't have for it, but I'm so glad that I found it. Okay, next on the list is a game from probably one of the greatest solo YouTube creators out there. And of course, I'm talking Renegade by Richard Wilkins, aka Ricky Royal. Renegade kind of takes the functionality of a game like Mage Knight or Spirit Island, where your cards are really important, and puts it into this kind of computer-based network. And you again use your cards throughout the rounds to try and maximize what you can do on there to fight against the system, and ultimately try to win the game. It's a very difficult game to win, and they've got a number of characters on there that are asymmetrical that you can choose from and play with, etc. It's out of print now, So, again, it's going to be a game that's going to be difficult to track down. I do believe there is a revised version coming out. It may be called something else, with another publisher. And I know Ricky's been working on the rules for it as well. But Renegade, for me, it's a relatively small box game. It's a lot smaller than Mage Knight or Spirit Island box. But when I play it, I have a lot of fun with it as you're fighting against these variable systems that you can choose to fight against in the game. The rulebook went for theme rather than functionality, so the rules don't necessarily work in the best way forward, but once you learn how to play it, I think Elizabeth Davidson's done a great video on how to play Renegade. It's an absolutely cracking game. When you haven't got the time to set up Mage Knight and commit kind of 4 hours to playing Mage Knight, but you feel like that type of game, then I highly recommend Renegade by Richard Wilkins. Really, really go and seek it out, or if you can, wait for the revised version coming through. The next game on the list is a market manipulation game, and it's a solo-based market manipulation game. And this came out about 2 years ago, and it's from David Turksey, and I think it's Pai Hui. I could be wrong. I'll have to check the name in a second. Let me see who did it. And of course, I'm talking about Excavation Earth, and I think Excavation Earth is almost an underrated gem in modern gaming. It is a game where aliens have come to a defunct Earth. Here we go. Oh, sorry, Yi. Yes, it's Gordon Kalea, David Turksey, and Yi. And it's a game where aliens have come to a defunct and derelict Earth, and effectively they're raiding it for artifacts. And how you buy these artifacts, or how you gather these artifacts and then take them to the market, affects their market price. So the more you sell, the less the price goes down. So you've got to really manipulate the game to buy low and sell high. It's a lot of fun. It's got a bright and colourful board, and it's got this the AI system is called, or the solar system is called Zoo. Now, in the original iteration, Zoo wasn't quite perfect, but now they've revised Zoo with the It Belongs in a Museum expansion, which really adds other mechanisms into the game, and of course an improved solo AI for it as well. And I think that it gets a lot of love from people that like it, but it doesn't get enough love out there, Excavation Earth. It comes to us from Mighty Boards, and I know you can buy it in the shops, and I know that It Belongs in a Museum expansion has just been delivered to backers. They've just sent me a copy. I highly recommend you go out and, if the idea of a Euro, sci-fi based Euro that isn't starships fighting, it is coming down, collecting artifacts, a couple of them a little bit rude in there, and then selling them, manipulating your market, trying to get as much credits or as much money as possible from them. It's a fascinating game, hits a chord on so many levels for me. So Excavation Earth probably won't make a lot of people's top 10 lists because it didn't quite catch that wave, but for me it's a bit of a undiscovered gem for a lot of people. So then we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be Uprising: Curse of the Last Emperor. So this comes from Nemesis Games, and this came out a couple of years ago. And they sent me a copy a couple of years ago, and I was blown away by it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Uprising: Curse of the Last Emperor is an area control combat game where you and an AI are going to take on, are going to work semi-cooperatively against two enemy AIs and try and take over as much area as possible, build your structures, and have combat and try and defeat the hordes that are coming in against you. They've just got the expansion which finished on Kickstarter at some point last year, which will be delivered to backers at some point this year. And again, not quite caught the wave that it should have caught, because I think that Uprising: Curse of the Last Emperor is a masterclass in how a solo area control game should work. And the great thing about it, it's got wonderful acrylic standees. It's a big game. It takes up, again, a lot of table real estate here, but the rules are relatively straightforward as you learn to play the game. The joy comes out of kind of this dynamic tile system that you put out. You don't know what tiles you're going to unveil when you explore the map, and you don't know what effect they're going to have on you, and you don't know how the two enemy AIs are going to work against you as well. There's a little bit more overhead in this than there is in some solo games, but once you get into that flow, it makes a lot of sense. It's gorgeous to look at. It plays really well. It plays a little bit long sometimes, but you can vary that length depending on what you choose at the beginning. So there are certain factors that you can choose, or certain cards you can choose at the beginning that allow you to vary that length. But if you want to go, like when I play it, I want the full length thing. I go for the full immersion, and I try to get as much game in as possible. So go and seek out Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor from Nemesis Games. If the idea of a soloable kind of area control, dudes on a map, resource management game appeals to you, it's hidden in a fantasy setting, then you need to go and check out Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. The last game on the list is, if you like kind of 80s kids-focused horror or adventure films or something like Stranger Things, then you're not going to be, and you want a dungeon crawler, you're not going to be going far wrong with Dustin Freund's The Ghosts Betwixt. This is just a glorious, glorious, glorious game, and I really hope that Dustin gets enough traction to release the next installment of it. It is you're a group of you're a family, and one of your members has gone missing. And you're investigating through this house, and there are various ghosts and bad things happening in this house, as well as the family there as well. You've got this dynamic kind of structure in terms of the map layout and where you choose to go, and the cards and where the doors are placed, etc. Loads and loads and loads of fun. It's a full campaign that you're playing through, and you've got a couple of wonderful books that go with it for Ghosts Betwixt. It's an utter joy to play. It's a true dungeon crawler with kind of this family feel, and it includes, great kind of amount of diversity in there as well. You've got a character in a wheelchair, etc. You've got male and female characters, and you fight against these ghosts and bad guys. It's so much fun. It did okay on Kickstarter, and it's been delivered to Kickstarter backers, but I think more people need to play Ghosts Betwixt, because once you set it out and you start playing this campaign, you're going to have a hell of a lot of thematic fun playing this. Excuse me. It's a completely different take on dungeon crawlers. We all get a little bit tired sometimes of the tropes of dungeon crawlers, be it a barbarian or a wizard that's going through their kind of thing, or monsters coming at you in a kind of Cthulhu type setting. There's nothing wrong with something like Cthulhu Death May Die, but this takes that, turns it on its head, captures the zeitgeist of something like Stranger Things, and provides this really kind of fun 80s experience, almost a Goonies type adventure as you're going through this house. I absolutely love Ghosts Betwixt, and I really hope that more people seek this out, because I think that you can play it on your own as a solo player, but if you've got a family as well, it's great to play with kind of other family members as well. But for me, it really hits the nail as a solo game. So there we go. We got 10 solo games there that you may not have considered as part of your kind of journey through solo gaming. Some of them will be on your list. I should imagine Eldritch Horror will be on some people's list, and maybe a game like Dawn of the Zeds will be on many people's list. But in terms of top 10 lists or solo games of all time, it's always monopolised by some of the same games. You've got your Gloomhavens, you've got your Mage Knights, you've got your Spirit Islands, you've got your Arkham Horror LCG. But there's a wealth of solo games out there that sometimes people just don't try. In here, I've kind of covered adventure-style games. I've covered a strategy-type game like with Renegade there, a Euro-style game with Excavation Earth. There's loads of others you could go out there and have a look at as well. A game like Star Wars Outer Rim doesn't get enough love. The base game was a little bit restricted in solo, but if you got the third-party app, you could use any character as solo. They've now released Unfinished Business, which I've still to get, and that adds more to it as well. A game like Gears of War, the dungeon crawler game, again, old style mechanisms in there, but really works. And you look at some other style Euros as well. One of my favourite soloable Euros out of the Vital Lacerda collection is Escape Plan. I think Escape Plan works better as a solo than it does as a multiplayer game. It just feels thematically more on point. Or something like Rococo as well, a beautiful game about dressmaking in kind of 15th, 16th century France. But it's obviously a subject and an era of history that doesn't interest me, but the gameplay is so silky smooth in it. It's a beautiful game to look at and a joy and a joy to play. So when you're checking out people's top 10 lists and solo game lists, try and expand that a little bit. Try and think about other games that aren't necessarily kind of the hotness or in the top 10, 20, or even the top 100 or 200. There are some wonderful games out there that don't make the list because they don't have enough traction behind them, or because time has passed and, a game like Aliens, This Time Is War, you can't really get it these days, and mechanisms have moved on. It doesn't stop it being a pure joy to play. Things like Dungeon Degenerate sits outside the top 200, but for me, that is a game that would be certainly my top 20 games of all time, top 20 solo games, Dungeon Degenerates. Same with Ghost Betwixt. Because it was a relatively small Kickstarter, it did okay. It funded, obviously, it's been delivered to backers. Still didn't quite capture the wave that it should have had, but it exists out there. And if people are willing to hunt it down and go to Dustin's kind of website and reach out, etc., I'm sure there are other copies you can get, because if you do, scratch the surface of solo gaming. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the populist games, but there's a lot more out there for us to enjoy and experience. So, thank you very much on this relatively brief video, taking you through just some different soloable games that you may or may not have in your collection. As I say, go out there, scratch the surface, find a few more, see what works for you, and chances are, once you start moving outside these populist lists, you're going to find some real hidden gems. So thank you very much. My name is Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos. And one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.